Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the biggest wickhead on YouTube, and this video we're going to be talking about a number of things that we've learned about John Wick Chapter 4. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the alternate ending that they considered using, and also how the cast and crew reacted to Lance Reddicks passing. I just want to get straight into it, but as we're going to be talking about the original ending, we have to give a spoiler alert before we get into it. This scene was shot as an add-on to what we saw at the end, and it may ruin the film if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet. All out of the way, huge thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into John Wick Chapter 4. Now the movie ends with John killing the Marquis, but in order to do that, he has to goad him into taking part in the duel itself. In his arrogance, once he sees that John is seemingly beaten, he decides to take Kane's weapon and he goes to shoot John. Wick didn't actually fire during the last shot though, and he uses this opportunity to kill the Marquis and free not only himself but also Kane and his daughter. However, he's mortally wounded and he ends up dying on the steps of the church after uttering his wife's name Helen. Now many people were shocked to see this scene playing out as Wick was seen as this invincible and unstoppable Terminator that was the very personification of the boogeyman.
Like Baba Yaga.
And because of this, many people have speculated over the last couple of days that Wick is still alive, and there's been a lot of wires getting crossed over whether he'll return or not. There was a 5th John Wick film greenlit along with 4, and because of that there's been this talk that they haven't announced that, so people just go with the ending. Wick is also due to appear in the Ana de Armas spin-off The Ballerina, and you can see how rumours can spread.
Like Baba Yaga.
No, not like Baba Yaga. However, Chad Stahelski has been doing a lot of press over the last couple of days, and he's discussed an alternate ending they shot, which has actually cleared up a lot of things. So originally Chapter 5 was in the works and they were going to shoot it back to back with Chapter 4. However, he said that they realised they'd rather do one movie that they can put their all into instead of just making 2 concurrently. The Ballerina is also set between the events of Chapter 3 and 4, so it doesn't really retcon the ending of this film either. Now as for that ending, when the director and Keanu went to the studio to pitch the idea, they kicked off and said they were insane for killing off their big cash cow. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Chad said that because of this, the crew ended up having to shoot an alternate ending for the film, and in this, John was left alive. When discussing it, he said they were initially unsure over whether to do a 4th movie, and they came up with the why, which would ultimately be John's death. They realised that they'd kind of fallen into a formula with these movies where they were the same sorts of beats, and Chad even said that if he was a fan, then he would have watched Chapter 3 thinking, how is he going to get out of this? Just give me an ending. So Chapter 4 was pitched as something that the franchise hadn't tackled before, which was consequences and also a conclusion. He said that they very much felt like the film should be a goodbye to John, but they also wondered how to give a proper one. Thus, they came up with the idea that slays throughout the movie, which is that a good death only comes after a good life. He says that sums up the film, and that the entire movie is about an action-packed thrill ride in which John gets his redemption. Now Chad then went into the test screenings that they did and the times that they showed the alternate ending to audiences. According to the director, the ending was almost identical all the way up to the funeral scene. We even had that play out exactly the same, however John's dog would look longingly over, and from here we get it confirmed that John was still alive. This is why we had that shot in the movie, and also Winston and the Bowery King discussing whether he was in heaven or hell. Because they said neither, that also implied that he was still alive and out there somewhere, which is something that we pointed out in our breakdown of the movie, which is linked in the comment below. However, the fact that Chad's saying all these ideas were eventually cut down means that the intention was indeed to kill him. So put away your tinfoil hats, you chump. John is intended to be dead, but with Hollywood being Hollywood, you never know how they're going to work this stuff in, so us chumps keep going back. I'm talking the Ballerina introducing cloning technology or something. Now this ending didn't go down too well either, not the cloning thing, the ending where he's still alive. And apparently after the test screening they realised that it wasn't a good fit for how they made their movie. Everything about it is centred around death, and in bringing back John, it's somewhat cheapened the message. They talked about how this film was about him realising that he'd ruined many of his friends' lives, hadn't hit the thumbs up button, and had killed hundreds and hundreds of people in order to avenge his dog. Thus, they wanted to give him some finality and consequences to that, so they had him saving a friend before his death, which acted somewhat as a redemption. In the end, the studio also told them that they could go with whatever ending they felt strongest about, and this is what we got in the final cut with John passing away. For now. Anyway, this film, I'm sure he won't be back, but this film is of course filled with death, and sadly most notably Sharon's. Played by Lance Reddicks, the actor sadly passed away whilst the creative team were promoting the film, and this has been a tragic conversation topic centered around the movie. Lance died just as the film was being sent out to press for screenings, and Chad talked about what the creative team felt upon learning this. He said that both he and Keanu were massive fans of the actor because of The Wire, that he was one of the first people they cast after getting Keanu for the role. He said that when they initially pitched the idea for the first film, it was difficult getting people to show interest because they said it was about a man whose dog was killed and he got revenge. Didn't really work in pitch meetings, he didn't get the grand scale of it, and thus many actors ended up turning it down. However, they said to Lance, "You're gonna be Charon, the gatekeeper. John Wick is gonna be like Greek mythology. It's a film like Lord of the Rings, but in modern day." Apparently, he instantly got it and signed on to the movie. Now, cut to 4, and he said that when they pitched the idea to Lance about his death, that this was his reaction. "Look, I can't tell you I love it, I can't tell you I'm not upset, but I can tell you that I don't know another way to make this movie good." Chad later went on to talk about how his character's death is the catalyst in the movie that really kicks things off, and it's a major driving force for Winston. The Marquis didn't want to make Winston a martyr, as it would give people a reason to fight. However, in killing Sharon, he very much made one for Winston. Now, when talking about his reaction to his death, Chad said, "Cut to last Friday. We had literally just got off the plane in Toronto, but it seemed to be a very exciting and positive time. All the screenings had been going really well, and we'd been so fortunate to have good responses. So we'd been talking to Lance probably every other day, and had just seen him during the LA press. We left him with a high five, going, 'Catch you later.' And then when we got off the plane, Derek Kolstad, the original writer who's very close with Lance and his family, called me and said that Lance had passed away. We hadn't even put the bags in the room yet, and I made one call to Keanu. He answered, and I was like, 'Hey man, I gotta come see you in your room.' And he was like, 'Sure, come up.' So he opened the door, and I was like, 'Look, I have some bad news. Lance just passed away.' And after the initial what the f*** shock, everything went quiet. And then Keanu looked at me and said, 'This is for him.' We only had 2 or 3 hours before we had to go on stage in Toronto and do the thing again, but that's obviously nothing compared to what his family and close friends are going through. So for the next hour and a half before our screening, we told Lance stories. We realised how lucky we are to have worked with him. It was one of the most fortunate times of my life." Now, the movie had been sent out to cinemas already, and they said it's extremely difficult to recall the DCPs that get sent out to theatres. However, even before Chad asked Lionsgate to add something to the end, the studio had been hard at work and they'd been making the calls to try and get it out there. They said that unfortunately, not every single screening will have the dedication added onto the end, but I saw it on mine, and I know that others did too. Now, Chad did say that by the time it hits streaming and so on, that the dedication will be in place and that they can make sure that Lance is remembered for the great man that he was. And that concludes the video, and I hope you enjoyed this extra information on the movie, even if a lot of it is to do with tragedy, both on and off the screen. Let me know your thoughts below. Would you have liked to have seen the alternate cut in the film, or do you prefer what we ended up getting? Comment below, and just to let you know, we are in a competition right now, giving the Superman 4K box set to 3 subscribers on the 15th of April. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the video. We pick the comments at random on the 15th, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the film, which will be linked on screen right now. Lots of things to talk about, that ending, the post-credit scene, and yeah, definitely head over there right after this. By the way, thanks for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.